You might think mounting a major theatrical production is hard work, but here at Bas Bleu Theater, it's simply horseplay. I'm Lenny Scoville, and this is Stages. Well, today we are at Bas Bleu Theater, and we are here with the director of their current production, Equus, Robert Braddy, and with veteran Fort Collins actor, David Siever. Good day, gentlemen.
Good day, Lenny.
So, Bob, Equus by Peter Shaffer. Tell us what the play's about.
I'll tell you what the play is about in one or two sentences.
Yes, please.
It's about the conflict between passion and the common, the ordinary, the passionless. Has to do with a young man who commits a violent act, but he does it as a result of what he considers sin. He's created a religion. It's all because of an unfortunate family situation. He's brought then to a psychiatrist in a provincial hospital.
And David, you play Dr. Dysart.
Dr. Dysart,
right?
Yes.
The psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Obviously a very complex character, right? Lots of things going on many levels with this character. Tell us about the process. How did you approach portraying this character?
You know, it's first of all, it's a huge amount to memorize, which you would you would understand. So Bob approached me on it, two years ago. Yeah. And I knew it was a lot to memorize. So I started out with the memorization. As you know, I live part-time in Costa Rica. So I had the script down there, and I would walk the beach every morning. And so that's when I learned the monologues and really got familiar with the play and what it was saying and what it was doing and so forth. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very, as Bob said, very conflicted person, which you don't see right at the start as the play progresses and as he deals with Alan, the young kid. Dysart sees what the kid has and what is missing in his life. So it all just sort of, it plays along that way until we get to the climax of the play. You know, I did a lot of research on it. I did a lot of analysis of the play. There's a tremendous amount of analysis out there on this play. It was written in, what, 72, I think, yeah, or 73.
73 in England, 74 in New York.
In New York.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it was just redone again in 07 on
with
Broadway.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah. Well,
that was just last year.
There's others in the cast. There's
of note.
Of note.
Yes.
Yeah. But there's a lot of analysis of the play. There's, you know, this play deals with so much. There's so much in there. There's religion. There is psychology. There is sexual overtones. There is all sorts of this that comes out during the play.
So Bob, Peter Shaffer, the playwright, is kind of known for working in these themes, right? This fine dividing line between, let's say, genius and creativity, mm-hmm, and yes, religious overtones versus the ordinary of living. Yeah. Is that what drew you to this script?
Well, I think partially, yeah. He wrote 3 plays on this particular subject. Royal Hunt of the Sun was the first one, and I directed that for the Reader's Theater. And I was fascinated with that, and that has to do with Pizarro and the conquistadores and the conquering of Peru. And it has to do with life and religion, the Inca religion dealing with the sun, and the conquistadores with what is really portrayed as a kind of dead Catholicism. And the second play was Equus, dealing, as we were talking about, with this question of genius and passion. And then the third play was Amadeus, all of them dealing with youth, age, passion, the ordinary, and the conflict between these things. So he had pretty well covered the base. Equus, in my opinion, is the better of the three plays, because I think it's a little more thoughtful in its approach. Now, I have to admit the psychology in it is not very good. But it's not about psychology. It's not about disfiguring horses. It's not about any of that. It's more about the creativity, as you put it, the creativity of the young man, and the question of Dysart finding himself through beginning to understand what it is that the young man has got. The creation of religion has to do with a lot of the suffering religion brings with it, and it is really a rounded play, I think.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about the psychology, some of the analysis, you look back, and in 72, we were at a different point in where we're at in United, you know, and think of that it did perhaps have some relevance then, but now, over a period of time, not so much.
Well, and you know, it's set in a provincial hospital,
Yes,
right?
it
So
is.
so they're not anywhere where things are cutting edge anyway, and that's part of Dysart's story, right? Is
Yep.
that he's not.
Well, part of that he's settled for that
Right.
also, that he hasn't tried to do anything different from that. So he's stayed in this hospital all this time and so forth.
And the backstory is rather fascinating too, right? Because Shaffer, the incident itself is a true story.
Well, he says it is.
Yes, it's claimed that he read it in
yes,
a
he does.
newspaper or somebody related the
Yeah,
story
somebody,
to
a
him.
friend told him
Yeah.
one night, but he's not very specific about who the friend was, and there really isn't any documentation for it. But so you have to trust him on that. And yeah, there is that that interesting side to it. Another interesting side to it. It's the shape of the play is Greek in its nature, and complete choruses. I mean, you can go through and compare it to any of the well-known Greek plays, and you'll find the parts of the play in order and so forth. And interestingly, Dysart is fascinated with ancient Greece.
That's what was occurring to me when you were
Yeah.
talking about that.
Yeah, and it's the kind of dead Greece, the white columns, the old gods and so forth, who at one point Dysart admits have died, and there are new gods, which is right in line with what Alan has created. And this Greek passion of his, he's used it as an escape, as a means of justifying what he has been living and thinking for all these years. And that's important to him. Except,
From a structural standpoint, let's stay on that Greek,
okay.
the Greek staging, because it directly informs the way that this show is traditionally
That's
done,
right.
right? So we've got a chorus
Yeah.
on stage, which
Yep.
are the horses, and they have intentionally sort of large and not really abstract, but
Yeah, well,
they're intentionally translucent, right? You can
Yeah.
see the actor behind the horse mask.
and that's important to Shaffer.
Right, exactly
Yeah.
right, and even down to in the round staging of this.
Yes.
Talk about how we're staged in here, and what's going to be different for audiences that are used to coming to Bas Bleu and experiencing the traditional fare here.
I think the first and most obvious thing is the fact that about half the audience is going to be sitting on the stage, surrounding the action. And all the action happens in a circle, which is on the stage, which has located on it a turntable, which the action is divided between those two spaces, and they become different spaces in different times. You can consider, like the thing we're sitting on, this painted circle, kind of like the orchestra, and the turntable as something of a stage that would have been in the Greek stage. That is, of course, a question of
You know,
argument.
one thing about it that when I first saw it, I think I saw it at CSU, but I didn't come here till '79, and whether it was
before that, yeah.
it was before that. So I saw it somewhere, but you know, we talk about all of the background and all. It's a very theatrical production.
Oh, yeah.
That's what drew me to it a lot. It's very, for an audience, it's exciting. It's there's a lot going on all the time. It goes on all over the stage and everywhere. So it's very exciting to see. At least that was when I saw it before, and I think our production does the same thing.
Yeah.
And choreography is very important in this show too.
Yes, the horses. The way
Right, the horses, well, and also the act itself, right? Because that is,
Yeah.
the audience gets to see in a way
Yeah.
the incident that's sort of at the center of
They
all
do.
of this.
They do.
So that's got to be handled very carefully, I assume.
Yes, and we have a very good choreographer named Frances Lister, and she's done a wonderful job with them and added even something last night to the way the end of the show comes out, and she's done a wonderful job. Yeah. I worked with her in another show, The Blue Flower, where she played a horse, and she's just a delightful gal and does, I think, a wonderful job. There's another thing that I'd like to mention about the staging, which I hope is not going to be confusing to an audience. As David said, it's very theatrical, but we have established this space as a therapy room, a clinical room, but we don't maintain the integrity of the walls on the thing. So things can be happening in different places simultaneously, and the whole thing can happen. A scene can happen where Dysart is talking to a person in the square, where there's another person commenting from outside the square, and it's kind of a three-way conversation that's going on, but it's all contributing to the forward moving of the action.
You know, for me, since we've been doing it, it just seems very normal.
Yeah.
It just seems this is the way it is, and
Yeah.
I think the audience will have no problem with that. I
Well,
think
because
they'll see
it depends on deft directing, and
you know,
here we have Robert Braddy.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the character of Alan Strang, the young man that's at the center of the action of this, and his relationship to Dysart. Now, not just from a textual standpoint, but more from a dramaturgical standpoint, because their relationship on the surface, there's a doctor-patient thing that's going on there. If you go a little bit lower, you can kind of discern maybe a father-son or mentor-student kind of relationship. But it's my sense that Shaffer's going even deeper with that, because of everything that Alan Strang represents that is lacking in Dysart. Have you sensed that as you've worked on this?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it comes out as the play progresses. You know, at first the kid is very antagonistic, doesn't want to be there. That does, and Dysart fights back a bit to get him to open himself up to talk and so forth, and that happens very slowly, and then you can see how Dysart then begins to appreciate the kid and realize that the kid has something that Dysart has never had his entire life.
Yeah, and I sense that they're almost two sides of a coin.
Yeah.
You know, they're almost the same person.
Yeah.
In a certain sense.
Good point.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, Dysart's life has been essentially nothing, and the kid's life has been that same way until he discovers this other passion, and then has the passion. And passion's a good word to use with this play. That's just something that Dysart discovers, that he's had no passion throughout his whole life, and he sees it in the kid. And that becomes a basis for a lot of the drama in it.
And yet it's a disturbing sort of passion, though, too. I mean, it's,
of course it
because
is,
of the
yeah.
level that it's taken to,
Yeah.
and that must certainly engender fear, I would think, in Dysart, in that.
I think there's some of that. There's envy. There's all of that that's in there, saying, you know, do we get rid of that kind of passion? What do we
And what
do?
are we left with if we do get rid of that?
If we
sort
do
of
get rid
passion?
of that, yeah.
It's reminiscent of Clockwork Orange. Except in the Clockwork Orange, the Malcolm McDowell character gets it back because of some crazy law in England. He's been cured. Well, this doesn't happen. Alan is going to be cured. He's not yet at the end of the play. And there's a great sadness in that cure in Dysart's mind. He says, well, I'm going to leave this character or this person just to be the same as everybody else. You know, concrete.
Normal is a good word that is used
That's a
throughout.
word that's,
Is it gonna, you know, he's just gonna be a normal person, and the passion will be gone, and it'll just be the normal life and all that. So.
Right, and a question of the value of normalcy.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that is argued quite a bit. Another interesting thing about the play is that if you take the first speech of the play and the last speech of the play, and several inside the play, it's one speech. And all the action that you're seeing is at some point in the past. And so it's a kind of flashback moving forward that the present intrudes on every now and then, simply to give you a new perspective on the play. So you can take all of the monologues that Dysart has,
And there are many.
and a lot of words, and put them together, and they will make a whole, which I think is one of the nice parts about unifying the play and bringing it together.
You know, the first monologue is essentially what happens at the end of the play. Dysart has been through all of this. And so that first monologue is really where he's been at the end of the play, and then we move forward to how it all started.
Right, because we
and
get
so
the
forth.
sense, when we meet Dysart at the beginning, that this is almost being done in memory, right? It's almost like he's remembering.
He's telling somebody
Yes,
the story. Yeah.
Right. But it's also, and again, I think this is, I love the way Shaffer operates in this way. It's very confessional.
Oh, yeah.
From Dysart, right? It's you've definitely got this sense that he's got this thing that he's carrying,
Yes.
and he wants you, the audience, to be his confessor,
Absolutely.
right? And he's looking for some sort of absolution
Well,
in
he
telling
has a
the story.
penance,
Yes.
but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you know, he's a kind of sad character, the Dysart character, because there are certain things that you don't want to know in life. I think life frequently can be better if you don't know certain things about yourself, and that's taken away from him. It's like knowing the time of your death. I can't imagine knowing such a horrible thing as that. You know.
So
But-
is the play a tragedy then, in the Greek sense?
In the Greek sense, boy, that's a good question, Lenny. I would say off the top of my head, it comes very close to it. Yeah. Because there is a punishment. It
Certainly seems to be a tragic flaw.
oh, there's a flaw, right? Yes.
You know, kind of when you get to the end, there maybe not a tragedy, but there are no winners.
Right.
When
There
you
are no
look at
winners,
that,
yeah.
Dysart is not a winner, and certainly the kid is not a winner, and that's
Well,
what
and
the
society
play's
is maybe
about.
not a winner too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because
Society.
it's again, we're dealing with these big themes. The story doesn't happen in isolation, right? It's not in a vacuum. It's a comment on all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It deals with so many subjects coming up. Dysart, I mean, it talks about phenomenology, ontology. He talks of metaphysics, which is essentially ontology. He just deals with trying to pull all those ideas together and discovering who he is.
Well, it sounds like the audience better come 2 or 3 times to see
I
the
hope
play.
so.
There you go.
I think it's a pretty good. I think it's coming together well. Yeah.
So, David,
Yeah.
this is the second Richard Burton role that I can think of that you've played here in town.
What was the first
You
one?
were George in
Oh,
Who's
right.
Afraid of Virginia Woolf? So
Right.
what's next for you? Are you Mark Antony? Are you Shannon?
I'll tell you what I said. I said, the next time someone approaches me with a role this large, I hope they talk me out of it. It's been a big memorization. I was talking with somebody who did Amadeus and played Salieri. And Salieri?
Yeah,
That's
Salieri,
the name of
yep.
it. He said, hey, because Dysart never leaves the stage. He's always on stage and moves everything forward and so forth. So it's been a lot to memorize. So I'm not going to do as big a role the next time, I don't think.
I don't remember having to persuade you.
Well, no, you did. No, I tell you, it's one of those roles that people like to want to play as an actor. I mean, it's got so much depth to it, and it's got so much to it. It's a lot to memorize.
Right. Well,
but it's a wonderful role.
it's a role of a lifetime.
It is.
Right? It's
It's
certainly
just one of those roles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I would, when Bob first mentioned it, I might have thought about it a week, and then I said,
Well, I actually, and you may not remember this, but I approached you with this idea some 3 or 4 years ago, and you turned me right down.
Did I really?
Yeah, and I said, "Oh, gee, David, you shouldn't do that. That's a good."
That might have been because I was in Costa Rica and so
Yeah,
forth. I lived
it
down
must have
there, but
been.
the timing for this worked out really
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
And I just kept working on you.
Yep. It worked good.
Yep.
Well, Robert Braddy, David Siever,
Yep.
thank you for joining us here today on
Well,
Stages.
thank you.
You bet. Thanks.